Yeah, so hello everyone. Let's just give another 10 seconds for everyone to connect. Okay, and I think we can start. So again, hello everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion, MVP in today's Hype or Real Deal, where we're going to uncover success stories and lessons learned from the stakeholders. First of all, thank you all for joining us, and hope that this panel will answer not all, but many of your questions around today MVPs, vibe coding, and AI tools. Prepare your questions, leave them in the Q&A section or chat, and let's go. So in today's startup ecosystem, speed isn't just a competitive advantage, it's often seen as a survival skill, and founders are under immense pressure to test ideas quickly, raise capital early, and prove traction fast. But with the new AI tools that assist you with software development, and not only, we see a lot of hype and buzz around that. And if you start this journey, it might be hard to navigate and get the answer to one question. Can you actually build an MVP in 2 days? So here we are. And before we dive in, I want to introduce our amazing panelists today who bring a wide range of experience from startup advising, engineering, business, and product building. And let's have a quick hello from everyone. So today we have with us Oleg Lysyak, who is startup advisor, VP of partnerships at Honeycomb Software, and founder of Rocket Network.
Hello, guys. Thank you, Tanya. Nice to meet you all. Oleg, joining from Houston, Texas. So VP of partnerships and business development at Honeycomb Software. So at Honeycomb, we build AI-powered solutions blazingly fast. And at Rocket Network, I help connect the dots of the innovation ecosystem in Houston by providing lots of resources and events, highlighting events that are happening in the ecosystem. So good to see you all, and thanks.
Thank you, Oleg. We have Bogdan Krasuk, who is head of engineering at Honeycomb Software.
Hey everyone. Here at Honeycomb, we spend and focus lots of resources on integrating the AI tools, which proved the right direction based on lots of questions that we received from you guys. So eager to start the conversation with you. Hello again.
Amazing. Thank you, Bogdan. We have Gabriel, who's co-founder of VishGuard, voice phishing cybersecurity for enterprises.
Hi, Tatiana. Hi, everyone. So yes, my name is Gabriel Beaudoin. At VishGuard, we help enterprises protect against deepfake voice threats, and with industry-leading awareness training and simulation. And we have found those AI software engineering tools to be extremely useful. So very happy to share our experience with you.
Thank you, Gabriel. And we have Chris Mullins, who is founder of AnswerPath.
You're on mute.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. I'm Chris Mullins, founder of AnswerPath. I am the sole employee and founder, and I built a tool that I needed as a 25-year sales leader with growing teams and always getting questions. So AnswerPath helps your employees find the right answer for your company quickly. Excited to talk with you guys.
Thank you. And we have Jeff Wong, head of business at WindSurf.
Yeah, as one of the first vibe coding tools out there, I'm happy to be here to talk about this stuff.
Thank you, Jeff. And we have Jason Ethier, who's founding partner at Energy Tech Nexus.
Hey, yeah, I'm Jason here. Glad to be here. We work with one of the largest networks of energy tech founders here in Houston, over 120 entrepreneurs, and connecting with industry. I will dispel the myth that the oil and gas industry does like AI. They love it. So love to share some insights on that here. Energy is critical. So back to you.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everyone. Looking forward to the discussion. So let's start with the big picture. We've seen a major shift in MVP development from traditional builds in 3 to 6 months to rapid validation cycles that can happen in days or even hours. But this change isn't just technical. So investors want proof faster, users expect quicker iterations, and founders have to make decisions with less certainty than even before. So, Oleg, from your perspective, what's changed in the startup ecosystem that's driving this urgency?
Let me quickly ask ChatGPT. Well, so, what changed? I think the main thing, so folks like, Chris, myself, like we all have those ideas that are just rotting in the Google Docs or in a Notion file somewhere. But now, generative AI pretty much unlocked an ability for visionary founders to prototype ideas without being technical, right? So, we're all using tools like Cursor, WindSurf, Lovable, what have you, and I think we all should use them as much as possible. And even if you slap some product together, in a few days, that's far from perfect. You still will learn and you will fail forward, right? So we all have our own definition of MVP, right? So for some, it's minimum like viable product. I think for some, it's a minimum vibe codable, let's say vibe codable product, right? So momentum is bigger than master plans, right? So you can release something scrappy and let reality do the teaching, ask users for feedback. You can iterate very quickly. So what I'm noticing is market is fragmenting into micro SaaS and agentic experiences. AI native startups are choosing usage-based pricing as well. I just came back from SaaS Talk conference where I learned a ton about that, still digesting a lot of it. So there's lots of hype around agentic systems, MCP or Model Context Protocol, and A2A and how they all could work together. So A2A is agent-to-agent protocol, by the way, for those who don't know. It's the way that agents can communicate with each other. I'm also noticing like a culture of ultra short sprints, even in the more advanced startups. So they have like these two rules of MVP, not MVP for the full product, but MVP for the feature, right? And so what they do, if they don't build something tangible and viable in 48 hours, they would just kill the idea. So what's driving the urgency? Everyone understands that we all have the same 48 hours, and competitors are also know that those tools are out there. So speed to market is super important, and everyone is trying to get to product market fit fast, ask for feedback, and hopefully get embedded in our workflows and be first to market. And so I'll stop there, but I can go on and on about this.
Yeah, we'll come back to this, so no worries. Jason, and you also work closely with early stage founders. Like, how do investors in your network view this lightning fast MVPs, and are they impressed by speed or worried about something that important is missing under the hood?
Yeah, no, I think investors a lot of times want to invest in businesses, right? And I think as founders, sometimes we love technology like a little too much. And especially investors in energy sometimes don't need to know how something works. So you're usually working with physical, chemical stuff that they don't understand, and then they go see a whiz-bang new AI model. They don't need to know how it works under the hood. What they care about is it drives value. And if you can show that with an MVP and show them a line of sight to where this goes over time, what they care about is that you understand the technical challenges in the market and that you can create real value for end users.
Thank you. And also, Jeff, you as the tool actually that sets those trends, how do you see this change right now from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, right now people can go wild and people feel empowered to build almost everything. And obviously, like, it's not great for everything, right? If you have a data advantage or maybe like a high serving cost advantage, those apps will still be around. But you can notice like most SaaS apps are just taking data from one place and putting it somewhere else or storing it somewhere else. And you can do most of that with vibe coding. So when you look at the bigger picture, the things that we have to worry about now is like how do you make sure security is still in place? How do you make sure newcomers aren't making mistakes like hard coding, I don't know, API keys or passwords into the app itself, right? So I think over time you'll see more kind of like guardrails in place for vibe coding. And then you'll also see like models get better and be able to have better taste. Like right now, I think the most valuable skill set for a vibe coder is having good taste and having a very good like product sense, right? And eventually models will get there as well. But today, I think that's probably the biggest skill to have with vibe coding.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. We'll come back to one things you mentioned during your talking, but a bit later. But now let's just talk a bit more about MVP itself. It's the question we also got is that it's now kind of really misunderstood thing right now. It can be different different forms. So it can be anything from an Notion doc to an Code app. So, Bogdan, from your engineering experience, what really counts as a minimum viable product today? And as Oleg mentioned, does it has to be like viable or probably just validatable?
That's a really good question. Well, what counts as an MVP depends on the goal, right? If you are looking for something just to visualize your idea, bring the guys on table just to get a future for your specific project, that's the one story. If you are looking for something that gonna be as a just a basement, just a background for much bigger project in the future, that's completely different story. In both of them, you can use AI to help you. We also focused on the security as much as possible. We'll have the chance to discuss this later today, I believe. But what in terms of MVP, the short answer is yes, as I totally agree with Jeff that people go wild these days. And I totally agree with Oleg that you definitely should use that. There is lots of skepticism at the beginning, like you cannot build something that was on the high level from the code perspective. Is not true these days. We managed to prove it multiple times. It comes from the preparation that you did. If you are the one who have zero technical skills, then there is a high chance that you're gonna make mistake. Of course, then you're at the risk. If you already had some technical background, as more the better, for sure, as usual, I believe, this equation does not change these days, then you will be able to predict a lot of pitfalls that you may expect in the future. So we even focus on the idea of having a preset, a template that gives you an option how to spin up an MVP really fast to kinda not de-automize, but basically cover all of the painful parts. For example, things that related to the infrastructure. This is the place where there are lots of risk in terms of security may appear. If you are a non-technical person, then if I'm gonna explain you how private virtual network work, probably you're gonna stuck with that. And in order to create something or implement something like that, even using the AI, well, would be a really challenging for you. If you're a technical person, then you're probably gonna predict that and you're gonna ask the right questions. You're not gonna just deploy your application straight away at this and expose some API keys and so. But for the MVP perspective, for something that helps for the startups, for the small project to raise some money, to visualize the idea, to display it for the people, that's exactly what you need. So you definitely should use that.
So if to come back to the MVP question itself, so we also got numerous questions from the folks about validating your product idea before actually building it. So what founders should think about before the build and what they need to start with?
First of all, the stages. Like there is a general idea that you can build everything as is in one day. Probably no. One of the huge benefit of having an MVP as a completely separate stage or pre-validate if you even need to build some specific feature is to kind of see the end results. If you're gonna be in a position where you're gonna change the idea multiple times in a day or you define some specific feature as an obsolete in 2 days of the product, then probably it's not the best scenario. The whole MVP, like the whole set of features, well, viable is exactly a right word because the short answer, yes, it should be viable. Does all of the features and does all of the functionality should be viable? Well, no. Initially, you can mock some data. Initially, you can prepare something just to show the core idea. About the pre-validation, well, there is probably like everywhere else, the main answer that you should ask specifically yourself, like, Well, do I ready to jump into that madness? I mean, of constant deploying, changing the adjustments, your product based on the feature results, which actually bring us back to the MVP. To get the answer, you probably need to launch at least an MVP because this gives you an option to collect feedback, because this gives you an option to find the right features. And as a result of that, you may probably mark 50% of the features that you planned initially to implement as an obsolete and focus maybe only on one of them because
Yes.
you see that probably only this one is something that people need these days.
Yeah. Jason, yeah, you
Yeah, just want to reinforce that. I think like as founders, sometimes we fall in love with like everything a product can be and how it can connect and how it all links together. And oh my gosh, it's suddenly too complicated. And the reality is you want to find the unique selling point of your solution, and that might just be one or two features. Everything else is a defensive moat that you might build around the business, but people come for the one thing. And I think that's what investors want to see. I think that's what your customers get drawn into. And so that really kind of defines an MVP. What is that minimum kind of set of things you can get to? And it's hard. We all struggle with it.
yeah. And how basically like you see from your network, from your community about the validation itself before building it. So how people like and founders like should approach it?
Yeah, I think they're distinct classes of founders we have that we work with. We actually work with founders who do a lot of hardware, and that's a completely different type of prototype that I'm not going to delve into. About 25% of our founders do work in energy and energy tech. I think a lot of times like a prototype or an MVP where you don't have to show all the data or all the operations is a great place to start. A lot of times the sales cycles in energy can be like 9 to 18 months. So you got plenty of time to build stuff once you get a customer to fall in love with the idea. And so a 48-hour kind of MVP can be really functional. You can sit down with a potential buyer, you can get a really good sense of their needs. And if you can turn that around, and honestly, they'll be happy if you get them something in 2 weeks. I think it's really about helping people fall in love with like how you can solve their problems.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Let's give a bit of light to our founders and who actually had this experience of doing the MVP itself. So, guys, tell us a bit more about your product and how you did it. What was your plan and how you approach it?
Great.
Gabriel.
I
I can
go
start.
first.
Oh, go ahead,
Sorry.
Vishnu. Go ahead.
Okay. Great. I feel the way how we pursue MVP have changed drastically. Earlier, we used to actually take an MVP and validate the idea using a landing page and maybe people who can actually join to this idea. But now we can actually have a working prototype with all these AI generative AI tools. Most of the founders or most of the people who are looking into this vibe coding, the main issue which they have found or I have found myself is more the term MVP, what we consider as most valued product, building as much as functionalities in it, where we will never release it as a product itself. You just need to work on just one core functionality and just have it released. Just talk to your customers and understand whether they are interested in this product. If you learn something from 10 people in just 2 days, that's more valuable than just keeping that product in your pool and just polishing it again and again, and it never works. So get it out there with one core functionality so users can test it.
Thank you, Vishnu. Gabriel.
Sure. So I agree with what everyone said up until now. I think indeed, as Vishnu said, the validation part can get a lot faster to the actual product. Now, one thing that I've lived through that I think is a nice thing to avoid is really scope creep, which is like those AI developers, quote unquote, are scope creep machines. So they get, you ask for one thing and you get 10 things back. It's very, very important, as it has always been, to focus on a core problem of a user and the feature that will solve that problem, and make sure to constrain any AI that you're using. But yeah, definitely for us, it's been the same thing. So working our way to a minimum product as fast as possible. And indeed, there can definitely be something worked out in 2 days. Now, when it comes to, having that first product, if it's a proof of concept, if it's a minimum viable product. I also say sometimes now minimum lovable product. I think it connects well with what you want to be delivering to a customer. They need to like it, they need to love it, but it needs to be, it can certainly be very narrow in scope, and that's what we need to focus on. But it needs to be lovable.
I think, Gabriel, you're onto something there. Maybe we can make history here today. How about minimum differentiated product, right? What's that one feature that's enough different to cause users to change their behavior or adopt a new behavior? Because it's a struggle to get non-technical people to adopt a new behavior and process and technology. So what is enough? Where is the pain deep enough to get them to change? And if we can do that with just one feature, and if it takes 10 features, you really got to look in the mirror and understand, do I have something differentiated in the market, or am I just making a slightly painful experience a little less painful, which may be long-term harder to make into a viable business? But if you've got that one big value prop and your vision is different enough, you've just got to be able to get that in front of the user. And by the way, as a 25-year security guy, I'm going to say horrible things here, like maybe you don't need authentication, right? If you don't have de-identified data, if you have, roll it out without username and password. Just give them a URL. Now, it can't be localhost 3000, or can it? Can you give them a Docker container to run? So when you think about minimum viable, we're thinking about production enterprise apps, because that's the world we've all lived in. But what is the minimum? Can I just run a web server on a Docker container with no username and password and get that one differentiated feature in front of the user? And the minute you do, you will know whether you're onto something or not. The user's like, how fast can I get this? That's the moment you say, well, would you pay $10,000 a month for this? You didn't directly answer their question, but you're going to find out just how fast they really want it real quick, and you're going to start to validate. So you don't have, if you've got 6 friends that say they want to use your app, that is not validation. Even if you have 6 business users that want to use your app, that's not validation. Who has written you a check? That is validation. A check to go develop a vision that doesn't even exist, that pain is big enough that they're interested to work with you. And yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chris. And if to talk about like any of the challenges, guys, you had during this process and using these new approaches, are there any things that you'd like to share with the fellow founders and actually help them on the journey? Definitely.
I will say this: plan first. So we think that we can just give one small prompt to an AI, it'll build something, definitely. That being said, those AI models will take design decisions for you, and you won't feel those decisions until some point in the future. So it's really important to take on your shoulders those design decisions, and before even getting onto something with an AI model to code your product, to be sure that you have that drafted out and that you've shared it, that you've added it maybe to the code base, referencing it. And different products have different ways for you to steer the AI, but very important to have that at the very beginning.
I've had the same experience. Initially, just sort of crafting my own PRDs and then seeing some of the PRD tools out there. That combined with any task you give the AI, at least today, this is a rapidly evolving situation with the context windows getting bigger, but keep those tasks small and discrete so that they are contained in their scope. And the more you do that, the more work and thinking it takes, to Gabriel's point about design, but it also keeps your AI from going off the rails and making decisions sort of implicitly that you didn't understand were being made that come back to bite you later. I've been using something called Taskmaster, which I think is getting some buzz out there, that plugs into the AI IDEs and does a great job, sort of a project management system built to plug into your Cursor, WindSurf, Lovable, and it has an MCP server. So when you say, let's work on the next task, it actually goes into your project plan and understands what you're working on and where you're at. And whether you do it through a tool or do it in a markdown document, that is been an unlock for me a little bit in productivity, but well, definitely productivity because it keeps me wasting 3 days fixing something that blew up that I didn't even realize. So it's a big unlock for sure.
You can also, by the way, prompt like WindSurf or others to document the changes, and then if it gets too long, it'll have something to refer to. But I think if you know how to use GitHub and all these other source code management tools, you should commit often because
Yeah,
sometimes
that's
you get
probably the first thing we
ambitious.
should have
Yeah.
said as a warning, like a cigarette label before we started the whole session. Be
If
sure
you-
to commit often when vibe coding.
Yeah, we do have a revert feature in WindSurf, obviously, but like if you are going to be ambitious and add like a completely new segment or feature that is very like that you're not sure is going to work,
They
then
don't
make
charge
sure
by
you
the
commit.
commit. It's free.
Yeah,
Go ahead and commit
exactly.
again.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, so planning is the key.
Indeed. Just to add to Chris' point, when creating that PRD document, it's always good to have that in phases as well. So if you're already in building on some functionalities and you already know what phases you have to go over it, and if you don't have an MCP or anything connected to WindSurf or Lovable or anything, you can have these phases already in place. So that would act as a guardrail, and it would actually streamline the whole process on building the product.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see this coming, right? I expect WindSurf and Cursor and the others will probably integrate something like this soon. Linear MCPs, Jira MCPs, where issues can be multi-threaded in the background to work themselves out. So you can see these task management and IDE worlds converging. Definitely, however it works best for where you're working, get what's in your head out onto paper. By the way, that's a good exercise anyway, because it forces clarity in your thinking. And if you're really good, like go review that document with your user or users before you go invest the time to make the code.
And coming back, like if to talk about like a more technical perspective, but then from your engineering standpoint, like building MVP quickly is of course exciting, but it surely comes with some trade-offs. So what corners typically get cut when speed is the priority?
Testing. The first instance, of course, testing. Times you decide to limit your time spent somewhere. Like if you're the one person, of course, you're not gonna have a dedicated QA who gonna handle all the changes that you made for your MVP. Well, sometimes it's also can be a code quality. It comes from the things how prepared you are. If it's not the first time for you, if you're skillful enough, you already probably have some presets in terms of in WindSurf, it's called memories, like the prompts that gonna determine how the project should be spin up from scratch. The code style rules, the linting, it's still there. It's for every languages like TypeScript, Python, C# with compiled languages. It's simpler with interpret languages like the Python. It's a bit more complicated, but still doable. There is lots of linters that can help you with that. But in terms of using this vibe coding approach, in terms of trade-off, there is always a chance that you can build a whole project in 20 minutes, right? What would the quality would be as a result? Again, how prepared you are. Because of that, the short recommendation, not the share, but prepare your prompts, prepare in a three-way structure, the memories for the WindSurf or the similar stuff in the cursor that gives you an option how to handle the code style in the project structure, the hierarchy. Everything that can be automized must be automized. If you have a linting setup, if you have a preter or formatter setup, like in Python, set up pre-commit hooks. That gives you an option how to make sure that you won't be able to commit a broken code. Plus, all that vibe coding editors these days, they charge you for the tokens, for the request, right, that you made. But if the generated code produce a linting error, they're gonna fix it for free without spending an extra prompts. So at the first instance, you're interested in setting the project that provides you with linting, with formatter, with as much limitation in terms of code quality, I mean, as possible. As a result of that, you at least will be able to cover gaps in terms of code quality. Testing, yeah, you're the only one person. How to test it? Well, at least run it once locally before deploy it to some client. But ideally, you can involve even the AI assistant dev tools that help you with testing. There is lots of things in terms of accessibility testing and other stuff that can run your app in a preview mode on a local host and provide you with the details what should be changed. It's also there. Plus, the MCP protocol simplify your life. Even if you are not too technical, let's say, using the MCP protocol can help you at least check data in a database. In a desktop client from Anthropic, you have an option how to install MCP for PostgreSQL. So let's assume you don't know how to use SQL queries. Yeah, well, you can use natural language because of MCP protocol. Fine, you can find a workaround. There is always a chance that the way how you use this tool, it's a really bad idea trying to spin up a whole project with a single prompt. Plus, you can also use the different models. Plus, you can even ask a model to provide you a plan with the steps what you need to go ahead. Because now the context window for the models extended a lot, like for this new latest Gemini model. There is 2 million, I believe, they can handle, so it's pretty huge prompt. So the model gonna use the previous answers, the same answers that the model provide for you as a context, plus all these rules that you set up in editors. So you can limit this trade-off as much as possible, but you need to be prepared. It's not too much time. You can even use a project that you already have, just get rid of all of the stuff that you don't need and leave just a skeleton. Then set up all that prompts that you have and start from that. With having some, at least things in a code already implemented and verified by someone, it is going to be a much easier for the cascade mode or similar alternative in that editors to figure out how the code should be structured, how the styling changes must be applied, and the other stuff. But yeah, if we're talking about the MVP, the speed is probably the main reason why we decide to build an MVP. We need it for yesterday, right? So we
Yeah.
need to focus on that. And yes, if there is a trade-off in terms of quality, you're gonna agree with them if you're not prepared enough. If there is a trade-off with testing, you need to make sure that this one killer feature is tested enough. Get rid of the authorization and authentication, as Chris mentioned, but just have this one feature polished, and this should be good for the MVP. But with having that level of preparations, like I mentioned before, you can fully go ahead and scale this project to something bigger. These days, AI editors provide an option how to build a memories based on the features that they implemented, which means later, once you decide to make some adjustments, there is already would be a context, which simplify your life a lot.
Oleg, you have something to add, I see.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a quick comment. A friend of mine, Matt Bonacera, he's an architect with many years of experience. He likes to compare software development in general to construction, right? So he talks that there are many residential builders, let's say, that could build one-story houses, but there are only few folks that could build skyscrapers, right? So like those are experienced guys. That's where you need folks like, a Bogdan and other folks that are technical here in the room. So I just wanted to add that, right? So we just have to start with real problem and specific domain, and then choose the architecture for that domain. And of course, you can prototype very quickly, but if your problem is really huge, it's good to have somebody on your side that could architect it from the beginning so it's scalable. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Oleg. Let's touch a bit the security question. And companies, organizations, they increasingly rely on AI to run critical parts of their businesses, and they have to make sure the systems stay reliable and secure. Jeff, as the tool that actually enables Revit development, I'm sure WindSurf receives a lot of questions related to that. And that's what we also got from our attendees. Can you elaborate a bit more about how you manage that?
Yeah, I think it's back to the guardrails thing. So we, for example, added a button to one-click deploy. So you create an app with a single prompt. You have a single button to deploy, but now we've added features to deploy to a specific instance for your team. And then within the team, you can enforce single sign-on. So things like that will make it at least a little more safe that the public people can't access your internal team's apps. But I think over time, there will be kind of like prompts and different rules you can add that pretty much do best practices of like how the code should be written. The risk is like when you start iterating on these vibe coding tool or these vibe coding apps too much, where you kind of lose track of how it works, and then you might not even know if it's secure or not, right? And I think over time, like they're again all about guardrails. So you keep adding features that will make sure that it is the right best practices, it is safe, and when you do click the deploy button, that you feel comfortable, and you feel that your employees, when they click it, you feel comfortable too, right?
Yeah, sure. And we also like Oleg at the beginning touched a bit of question regarding A2A protocol. So, and we've got from someone technical, I guess, is what is the perspective of WindSurf using A2A protocol for software development?
I think it depends on how widely adopted it is. I think we saw very high signal for MCP, to the point where now we have an MCP marketplace. You just go and search for the server you want to add and you add it, right? So I think it just depends on like if the customers are asking for it and there's a very high signal, then we can make it a little more accessible.
Yeah, thank you. And let's also take a look at this from investors' perspective. Let's say founder builds an MVP in 48 hours, and what should they actually do next with it? Guys like Jason, for example, you talk a lot to startups, investors, and run the community. From your perspective, like how founders can turn that early version into real traction?
Oh my gosh, that's the like $10 million question there, isn't it? I think you know anyone kind of deploying that first product is trying to figure out if someone is going to pay me money. And I think Chris was talking about that earlier. What is that minimum set of things where people will give me not only that first check, but they'll give me the second, and the third. And the weird thing about the energy industry is $1 million contract is actually not like expensive. There are certain departments where you can go in and they'll kick the tires for $100,000, $1 million, and maybe you have one customer. It's not clear that that's a market, and you can't build a scale. Maybe it's a nice consulting business and you can live off that and go to the Bahamas. But if you want to build a scalable business, you're going to get big. You got to figure out that repeatable product, so you're not selling to just one user, right? One
Jason,
customer.
to your point,
Yeah.
maybe just to put a little perspective here, I was with a security a DevOps lead the other day who pays Splunk $28 million a year in license fees. So don't make yourself smaller than you need to.
Yeah, and I think it's the shrewd like entrepreneur is going to look at this and say, okay, how do we make sure we're building products and not single customer solutions? And so that means continuing to test, continuing to deploy, and it's good product management skills, right? And the challenge in energy specifically is long sales cycles. And I think we can build faster than the industry wants to keep up. But when you talk to the people in venture in energy, the three things they talk about wanting to deploy in the next 6 to 12 months is using new solutions to do process optimization, which is like the most boring thing in the world sometimes. It's like, how do I make my pumps run more efficiently? Or it's managing and measuring my emissions, reducing, accounting for my carbon footprint. But the biggest thing they have a challenge with these days is everyone's retiring. So you got these like folks who, let's say they're in their 60s, late 60s, and they know all of these things in their head that they haven't actually like put into paper or documentation. And we got a lot of folks my age, millennials, who are coming into the workforce and have to learn everything. It's a big challenge for data and knowledge management. And I think there's a lot of big energy companies looking for, how do we solve this problem? They don't know. They don't have an answer, but they're looking for what products can actually solve that for them. And it's really a critical challenge. And you got to imagine, you got $1 billion refinery sitting here. We really hope someone knows how to run it, because that's how we keep the energy supply chain and plastics and all the things we love to have running here in the US. So there are a lot of applications where we can take these kind of technologies to demonstrate value and figure out how do we turn this into a broad product.
Thank you, Jason. And another question we've got actually, which might be useful to cover here, like when we talk about MVP ready, does the expectation of the MVP change when the timeline for delivery is trimmed to 2 days? Padan, do you want to answer that from your perspective?
Short answer, no. I mean, because we focus on the speed. Previously, I expect to have something that can be used already in 2 weeks, maybe, right? Maybe 2 months, depends on the feature. But now, because of AI tools, maybe a part of speculations, everyone expecting to have the say, but in 2 days. So the short answer is no. Sometimes you can have even kinda this case when someone telling, fine, you're not gonna have 2 days, you're gonna have a week, but we will need these 3 features more or something like that. So I believe the short answer is no. There is still the same, even bigger expectation of your product. The AI tools help you to save time, if you're skillful enough, of course.
Okay, and like from also all of your expertise and experience when you work with founders and startups who have this kind of approach, what are the most common mistakes they make while building fast, do you think?
Couple different scenarios maybe here. For example, you can have the MVP that cannot be used after the MVP stage, let's say. Let's say you're at the position where you have check signed. So, phew, you have money, you found a client, maybe two, they ready to pay, but your solution is partially broken and maybe you need to start a new project. There is also a scenario, and that's fine. I mean, you did MVP, you reach a goal, now you can start from a new page and to be enough prepared. The most common mistakes is probably the amount of features that people expect to see in the MVP. Yes, the amount of features. Sometimes if people thinking that the MVP is pretty much a whole project, the core functionality. But in the real world scenario, it would be good if it's gonna be 2 features, ideally from the scope of 10 features. But in the way where when you can use it properly, without any kind of fear to have a partially broken solution that cannot go through the business goal needs start to the end.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any cases to share about what might be this pitfall and how to avoid it?
Yeah, I mean, initially it's being very, very detailed with what you want. A lot of people give like a few sentences and they want it to build an entire app, and then they just don't understand like what is going on. There's a lot of different features, there's a lot of different buttons, and it's not exactly what they intended to build, right? And then going back is hard. Like telling the app that, hey, you're completely wrong. I want to change X and Y and Z. It is harder when you have a lot of other stuff built already and going backwards. I think the second thing is probably just understanding how everything works and connects together. A lot of new people that try to vibe code just don't have a good background in understanding where the backend is stored, how does that become publicly facing, and how things interact with each other. So I think the second thing that would be good is for people to understand how different systems and data interact with each other. And just knowing that is like gets you to probably the next level when you're building these apps. And I will say, like, we are building internally probably 1 app a week and deploying it to the company. And it is making us question, like, what SaaS tools are actually valuable? Like, what tools should we actually be paying for, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us are talking about MVP today, but you can iterate on MVPs. You can actually rebuild it from scratch faster than you think. Like, someone might build an MVP, and then I might just rebuild it again, just to say, like, I think I can build a better one. So here's my version of it. And then
Jeff,
everybody
I've
internally shares
experienced
their own.
exactly
Yeah.
that on AnswerPath. I'm on, don't tell anybody, but I'm on version 24 internally before I ever release. And I think when we went to the cloud, AWS had this phrase of quit putting, Bart Simpson on a sticker on a server. It's not a pet. It's cattle, not pets. Don't troubleshoot it. Shoot it in the head and move on. And I'm wondering if we're not reaching that same moment here where you sort of realize you've coded yourself into a corner. You actually have more clarity about what your PRD should say. Go update your PRD and go start over. You can probably get to 80 or 90% of where you're at in a much cleaner baseline code base in an hour or two versus continuing to try and troubleshoot and ending up with a code base that may have some artifacts that don't treat you well later.
If you look at the entire life cycle of planning and building a product, you imagine it as like 100 blocks, right? I mean, our goal is to remove 99 of those blocks, right? And I think right now we probably removed probably 20 to 30, maybe even 40 of those blocks. And what you've noticed then is the planning, the PRD, the requirements, and then maybe the testing, deployment, and iterations become the more of the blocks that are remaining. And then the writing the code piece is pretty much we're removing them very quickly. And as the models improve, maybe we start removing more blocks outside of the writing the code space. But I think that is how we kind of visualize the whole process and where we are trying to add leverage to all our users.
Thank you. So, before we jump into the questions from the attendees itself, so just to wrap up and probably highlight a few things to our attendees and founders, what would you advise and how to approach this process and how to build responsibly?
I can just
Can
maybe
start here. Oh, Vishnu, go ahead. Fine.
Okay, so whenever you create any SaaS products, and if you have sensitive data, try to sandbox those and isolate it at the best, and try to make it lean as well. So if something fails, it's fine. That specific module is getting failed. The rest of the part is still working. That's one thing which I would always tell my fellow founders to actually work on. And second would be try to add a middle layer as well, so that we will have a security layer. It's very easy to have a bearer token and get all your sensitive data out of the database, and would be shared across the internet. So try to add a middle layer. At least it would have some row level security, and you wouldn't have that issue of leakage of your data from the database. So security would be key. And I'm very thankful for Lovable and all the new tools out there, which is promoting the security updates as well, because any vibe coder might not be as technical as people who have been doing product builds. So they would not know what are the things which need to be taken care when building on those security items. So, yeah.
Thank you, Vishnu. Does anyone has something to add here?
My short recommendation is you still need to kind of work on getting hard skills in your specific sphere. If you are the one who thinking that everyone can start, you're right, but not everyone can be succeeded in that. So if you had a chance to get some hard skills in technical sphere, in terms of your specific programming languages that you focus on, in terms of as a software engineer, if you had the chance to get them, yes, you should. As more you have in a background, as more skillful you're in your specific sphere where you're trying to use the AI tools, the more precise you can be in terms of using the AI, the less pitfalls you will receive in your path. So the short answer, you still need to work to be a better software engineer, to be a better sales manager, and whatever else where you can imagine the AI is going to be used.
Don't be afraid to ask questions to the AI. You can say what is going on here? Can you explain this to me? And we have free models if you're afraid of credits or whatever. You can just ask how the components work, how do these work together, and where is the data stored? And you could even ask what are some security issues that I should be worried about too. So don't be afraid to ask to help understand the product.
In public speaking, they have this phrase, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. And I think with your AI, it's okay to repeat yourself. hey, we're about to go do this. I'd like your thoughts on the best way to do this using best practices. And it'll tell you, and you have a chance to check its thinking and say, yes, implement that perfectly. And then after it's done, to confirm, did we follow best practices according to this documentation and this documentation for all of the code you just wrote? And be like, oh man, I kind of deviated in this section. So don't be afraid to repeat yourself, because the AI appreciates it and you'll end up with a better end product.
This was a great example from Chris. You don't need to start writing the code immediately. You can also use AI as a feature who knows, well, everything, right? To explain the best practices and show you some examples. Yes.
And I was talking about best practices as well. The same best practices apply to vibe coding, or, however we code, the infrastructure, the way that we want to test, this is all the same thing. So once you know how traditional software development handles those kind of things, you can address those processes with the AI. Some of those will be kind of handled by default, but never to the fullest. And some of them are just not handled at all. So when it comes to deployments and CI/CD tests, you really have to be explicit about it. So this is an important one to not forget and to work on, on the margin of the product.
And if you're not going to go do that, if you're like listening to Gabriel or Beaudoin and you're like, I'm not going to learn to code, go learn the patterns. Like, what is the high level view of this? And if you at least know the pattern, then you know the vocabulary and the language to ask your AI, and it will sort of help do the work for you if you're not going to go spend the investment to actually learn.
Or you could, hire one of the software development companies. I know the best one in town.
Do you have any ideas about who we could look to there?
Read on the Tanya's background right there.
Yeah, just a narrative advertisement. But yeah, so thank you guys for your inputs, and let's just answer a few questions we've got from the public. We've covered a part of this, but probably we have something to elaborate here as well. So the question is like, can you build a complex full stack application with advanced features such as LinkedIn without knowing how to code? And how much can you rely to these tools? We covered a lot, but is there something that you'd like to add, guys?
It's pretty much the latest topic that I and Gabriel described. So the quality would be highly related on how eager you to getting better in the technical skills.
Yeah, and sorry.
I guess you can build up maybe 60 to 70% of what we already have with LinkedIn, with like job boards, profiles, all these items. But when it comes to scalable, that's when the issue would come. You might not be able to scale that with efficiency, and you might need to actually have issues when you need to rank things you can build 60 to 70%, but not 100%.
I think deployment is a much bigger piece of the equation than most people who are getting into vibe coding appreciate. Because let's say you get done, and there is that deploy button in the upper right-hand corner of many, but just try it sometime and see where you end up. And to Vishnu's point, look, should I deploy on containers? Is it a container service or on Kubernetes? Do I run Google or Amazon's Kubernetes or my own Kubernetes? What are the cost implications of that? How many users can we handle? I don't know all that stuff. I need a pro to help me do that. I'm still the expert in my app. I'm still the expert in the pain I'm solving for my customer. But at some point, I'll probably need an expert to help me create the best plan to go to scale.
Thank you. And we have an interesting challenge mentioned by one of our attendees is they say that we are struggling to deliver on our promise quickly enough. So I guess here we can help and probably to say how to prevent that case. And guys, any advices on that?
You could cheat. Use v0.dev, give them a working user interface. They'll think you've done amazing things and get feedback, and that'll give you more direction to go back and do work.
And there's one more bullet to the point. it's really difficult to estimate the time that you're gonna spend if you never had an experience to iterate with that before. So one more bullet on the improvement for your skills, for sure.
And another challenge was mentioned as a tech stack effectiveness and backend databases and getting the solution tested by trade specialists who can give feedback. Any comments here? Well done. Probably you have something from your experience working on projects like that.
Actually, if I can jump in here, I want to add something. I think I heard Jeff say before, right? Like with vibe coding, where it's like 100 things you got to do. I've never developed products, so I'm gonna process what you guys have said. We've only got about 20% that's kind of covered here, and the challenge with building the rest of the company is you got to architect the company, and it really speaks to how you design the team as a founder, right? Do we have the right people? And a lot of times investors talk about something called, there's product market fit. Are you actually solving this for a customer? But we also want founder market fit, right? Like, are we building this with the right CTO or the right folks? And the vibe coding is an important piece of the puzzle, but like we got to make sure that we got these right folks in here. And even with the other question I saw, when you're struggling to deliver on the promises quickly enough, I have so many questions. Is it because we have the wrong technology stack? Is it because we're like have a salesperson who's over promising and like they need to pull it in? That's a management challenge. And that is kind of putting that context to what investors think about. That's some of the stuff that's going on in the back of their head. Is it the right team who's building the right things? And that is unfortunately, like the 80% not covered here, right? Anyhow.
Vishnu?
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask the agent as well. Just ask the agent what tech stack can be used, and don't be just concentrate on one AI. Just ask to GPT, maybe ask to Lovable, ask to different LLMs and see what are the tech stack which you can use, what are the benefits of using it, what are the drawbacks of using different tech stack, and then you have a perfect PRD what tech stack you need to use for your product.
Okay, thank you. We've got another question from Matthew, and it sounds like, is there a key scenario where Honeycomb would use Replete or Lovable? Is the expectation to hand off that code to developers to take over outside of those environments to a low scale? So I guess Oleg or Beaudoin, can you comment here?
I mean, I could give a suggestion. What you could give us is the screenshots of the product that you built in the in the Lovable or other tool that you like. And now essentially we used to build wireframes, or we still do clickable prototypes in Figma, but now pretty much you could skip this step, right? Because you're able to go and prototype live. Maybe your code gonna suck, probably will suck, unless you using very specific rules to make it better over time. So definitely it's good to, I would say if you give us the code, that would not be ideal. Like to Jeff's point, sometimes it's easier to start from scratch. And so, but for us to have as a reference to take a look at the different user workflows and kind of to see your vision quickly, that could be useful. So
that's actually a good point. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Technically speaking, yes, it's doable. So we can get a code that written by Lovable or similar tool and do the rest of the things in the usual for our scenario approach using our tooling and deploy it somewhere with scaling, the ensuring it's scaled. But the short answer, it highly depends on the quality of that code. And if you at the position like, then I'm gonna skip it, I'm gonna keep it in Lovable because I'm not get any benefits. No, that's not true, because even if we decide to build it's again like skip and start a new project, the current Lovable prototype help us a lot, at least to replicate a design, at least to understand the project. So yes, it's still valuable thing.
Yeah, so we're running out of time, and So guys, if there are any questions that we haven't answered here, and there are some, so follow our LinkedIn and our website blog where we will give answer to all of them. But thank you to everyone joining us today, and thank you to our panelists for such an insightful discussion. And building MVP fast is exciting, but it's clear that the speed alone isn't just enough. Context, purpose, and strategy matter just as much. So we hope that you walk away with actionable ideas for your own product journeys. And again, just to remind you, follow our media and follow our pages to keep in touch and keep in the loop of our next events. And the recording will be in your inbox soon, together with the event guide with the insights and community perks as well. So stay connected, keep building, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you, Tanya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.